Welcome back to Cliffhangers and Page Turners. I'm Cliff. As always, I'm joined by Paige, and this week we're diving into a book that had me sleeping with the lights on.
Oh, yeah.
Tell Me What You Did by Carter Wilson.
Oh, this one is a real nail-biter.
I know, right?
I actually had to put it down a few times just to catch my breath.
It's, for those of you who haven't read it yet, this book is about Poe, a true crime podcaster who gets caught up in a web of mystery and danger when a listener's confession hits way too close to home.
And that's what's so clever about this book, that the way Wilson blends the world of true crime podcasts with Poe's own dark secret.
Right.
It makes you wonder, how well do we really know the people we listen to?
Exactly.
Even those who seem to bare their souls on air.
Now, the story is told through two different perspectives. Transcripts from Poe's podcast, Tell Me What You Did, and chapters from Poe's point of view.
Oh, very cool.
This format creates a really interesting dynamic, allowing us to see the story unfold from both the public and private sides.
It's almost like we're getting a glimpse behind the curtain, you know? Seeing the person Poe presents to her listeners, and then the raw, vulnerable woman behind the microphone.
Totally. And that contrast becomes even more apparent as we delve deeper into Poe's podcast on the confessions that she receives.
One of the early confessions that really sets the tone for the whole book is from a listener who goes by the username KOD Forever.
KOD Forever, yeah.
Yeah.
This guy confesses to killing his ex-girlfriend's puppy in a fit of jealous rage, and it's just chilling.
What's striking about this confession is not just the cruelty of the act, but the casualness with which KOD Forever describes it.
Yes.
It's almost like he's bragging, seeking validation for his actions.
And this confession, as disturbing as it is, actually foreshadows the kind of darkness Poe is about to face.
It's almost like Wilson is setting the stage, showing us the potential for violence and manipulation that exists within the seemingly safe space of Poe's podcast.
Okay, so KOD Forever is definitely creepy, but then we meet Ian Hindley, and this is where things take a really sinister turn.
Right, Ian Hindley. This guy contacts Poe, claiming to know her personally, and he starts his confession by talking about torturing flies as a child.
Oh my God, right off the bat, that's a huge red flag.
Yeah.
It's like Wilson is screaming this guy is bad news.
Absolutely, and what makes it even more unsettling is that Hindley seems to know things about Poe's past, specifically about her mother's murder, which is a deeply traumatic event for Poe.
You see, Poe witnessed her mother's murder as a child, but has repressed the memory for years. So Hindley's familiarity with this event is incredibly disturbing both for Poe and for us as readers.
And the way that he reveals this knowledge is so calculated.
Yes.
He drops little hints, almost like he's testing Poe, gauging her reaction and seeing how much she can get away with.
For example, he mentions Poe's mother's safe word, which is a detail nobody else should know.
Yeah.
I mean, how creepy is that?
It sends chills down your spine. Suddenly, the anonymity of the podcast feels incredibly fragile, like a thin veil that could be ripped away at any moment.
And as Hindley continues to contact Poe, dropping more hints about her past, she starts to fear that he might be connected to her mother's killer, Leopold Hutchins.
It's a fear that's completely understandable, given Hindley's unsettling behavior and his apparent knowledge of Poe's darkest secrets.
Right.
It makes you wonder, is Hindley just a master manipulator, or is he something far more sinister?
Right, and that's the question that drives the first part of the book. As readers, we're constantly trying to figure out Hindley's true identity and motivations.
And just when you think you might have him figured out, Wilson throws another curveball. Hindley manipulates Poe into participating in a live stream episode of her podcast, and during that episode, he drops a bombshell.
He claims to be Poe's mother's killer.
Can you imagine being Poe in that moment, having to confront this terrifying possibility in front of a live audience?
Talk about a nightmare scenario.
And it's not just the claim itself that's so shocking. Hindley reveals incredibly specific details about Poe's mother's affair and the murder details that only the killer could know.
Yeah, it's like he's deliberately trying to break Poe to force her to relive her trauma in the most public way possible.
And in a way, he's succeeding. Poe is left reeling desperate to uncover the truth about Hindley and his connection to her past. But as she digs deeper, she uncovers a shocking secret of her own.
Oh yeah, this is where things get really interesting. 7 years ago, Poe tracked down and killed a man she believed to be Leopold Hutchins in New York City.
Talk about a twist. Suddenly we're forced to reevaluate Poe's character. She's not just a victim, she's also a vigilante who has taken justice into her own hands.
And that revelation raises so many questions about the morality of revenge.
Right.
Was Poe justified in her actions?
Right.
Can we really blame her given the trauma she's endured?
It's a gray area, and that's what makes this book so compelling.
Right.
There are no easy answers, and we're left to grapple with these complex moral dilemmas alongside Poe.
As I was reading, I couldn't help but wonder how I would react in Poe's situation. Would I confess my secret to protect Kip, or would I risk everything to try and outsmart Hindley?
Yeah.
It's a truly agonizing choice.
It really puts you in Poe's shoes, doesn't it? And it makes you question how far you would go to protect those you love.
Exactly, and just when you think things can't get any more complicated, we learn the truth about Hindley's identity. It turns out he's not actually Leopold Hutchins, the man who murdered Poe's mother.
Right. Remember how Poe killed a man in New York 7 years ago, believing him to be Hutchins? Well, Hindley is actually John Warbley, the brother of the man Poe killed Leonard Avery.
So Hindley's whole plan is actually an elaborate act of revenge.
Exactly. He's been watching Poe collecting information about her past and using it to manipulate her. His goal is to expose her secret and make her suffer for what she did to his brother.
Wow, that's a pretty intense level of dedication. I mean, it really speaks to the power of grief and the lengths people will go to for revenge.
It's chilling, isn't it? And it makes you question whether Poe was justified in killing Avery in the first place. Was he really Hutchins, or did she take an innocent life?
That's a question that hangs over the entire second half of the book. We're constantly trying to piece together the truth, along with Poe, wondering if her guilt over Avery's death is warranted, or if it's just another way Hindley is manipulating her.
And let's not forget about Kip, Poe's producer, who is caught in the middle of all this. Hindley breaks into Poe's Airbnb and takes Kip hostage, threatening to kill him if she doesn't confess her actions on a live stream of her podcast.
This scene is so intense. I was literally on the edge of my seat, wondering if Poe would break under the pressure.
The tension in this part of the book is palpable. We know Hindley is capable of anything, and the stakes are incredibly high. Poe is faced with an impossible choice: confess her crime and risk everything, or stay silent and watch Kip die.
Talk about a no-win situation, and the way Carter Wilson writes this whole scene, the build-up, the suspense, it's masterful.
It's like you're right there in the room with Poe, feeling her fear, her desperation, her agonizing struggle to make the right decision.
And then there's this whole other layer of tension, because as readers, we're also trying to figure out if Hindley is actually going to follow through on his threats.
Yeah.
Is he truly capable of killing Kip, or is it all just a bluff to break Poe?
Right, and the uncertainty just adds to the suspense. We know Hindley is playing a dangerous game, but we don't know how far he's willing to go.
And just when it seems like things can't get any worse, Poe's father arrives at the Airbnb ready to defend his daughter.
Talk about a twist. This is where the story takes a really unexpected turn.
And let's be real, who doesn't love a good parental intervention scene?
Especially when it involves a baseball bat, but things don't exactly go according to plan, do they?
Definitely not. Hindley is armed and a struggle ensues. Shots are fired and Poe's father ends up getting wounded. It's pure chaos.
And Kip is right in the middle of it, desperately trying to help, but hindered by his injuries. It's heart-stopping.
The climax of this book is wild, just when you think you've figured out where things are going. Carter Wilson throws another curveball, and it's a doozy.
It's chaos, absolute chaos, and just when it seems like all hope is lost, Hindley is shot and killed. But here's the thing. It wasn't Poe, Kip, or even Poe's father who fired the fatal shot.
Right. It turns out a neighbor who had been following the commotion witnessed the struggle and intervened, shooting Hindley to protect Poe and her family.
Talk about an unexpected twist. I mean, I genuinely didn't see that coming. It's a reminder that sometimes, even in the darkest of moments, help can arrive from the most unexpected sources.
And it highlights the ripple effect of violence, doesn't it? This whole situation, Hindley's revenge plot, Poe's actions, it all spiraled outward, impacting the lives of people who weren't even directly involved.
It's a sobering thought, and it adds another layer of complexity to the whole idea of justice.
Because even though Hindley is dead, even though the immediate threat is gone, the consequences of Poe's actions are far from over.
Exactly. The police arrive, and Poe knows she can't hide the truth any longer. She confesses to killing Leonard Avery in New York, and she's arrested for murder.
And this is where the book really gets you thinking about the nature of justice. Poe, who took the law into her own hands, now finds herself facing the consequences of her actions.
It's a powerful moment of reckoning, and it raises so many questions. Is vigilante justice ever truly justified? Can we ever escape the past, or will it always come back to haunt us?
And the ending of the book, Poe starting a new podcast within the prison, interviewing other inmates about their crimes. It's such a fascinating choice by Wilson.
It is. On one hand, it feels like a continuation of her work, her fascination with the dark side of human nature. But on the other hand, it feels like a form of penance, a way for her to confront her own guilt and seek a deeper understanding of the choices that led her to this point.
It's almost like she's come full circle, isn't it? From hosting a podcast that encouraged anonymous confessions to interviewing convicted criminals face to face.
It's a powerful way to end the book, leaving us with a sense of closure, but also a lingering unease.
For me, the ending highlighted the lasting impact of trauma-Poe's childhood experiences, the murder of her mother, the years of repressed memories. It all shaped her choices and led her down this dark path.
Absolutely, and it's a reminder that we all carry our own wounds, our own hidden stories, and sometimes those stories can have a profound impact on the choices we make.
Tell me, what you did is a book that really gets under your skin. It's a wild ride from start to finish, full of twists, turns, and moments that will leave you breathless.
It's a thriller that will keep you guessing until the very end, but it's also a story that will stay with you long after you close the book. It makes you think about the choices we make, the consequences of those choices, and the complexities of justice and forgiveness.
So listeners, if you're looking for a book that will keep you up at night, a book that will challenge your assumptions and make you question everything you thought you knew then, Tell Me What You Did is definitely worth checking out.
And if you've already read the book, we'd love to hear your thoughts. What resonated with you the most? Did the ending satisfy you? Leave a comment below and join the discussion.
And don't forget to like and subscribe to Cliffhangers and Page Turners for more deep dives into the books that keep us on the edge of our seats.
Next week, we're switching gears a bit and diving into a literary classic that's still as relevant today as it was when it was first published, The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton.
We'll be exploring themes of social class belonging and what it means to be an outsider.
It's going to be a great one. Until then, happy reading.